With a little bit more insight on the past week is the host of the WGN Political Report, as he is every Friday here with us, Paul Lisnek.
I'm just going to stay here until Monday morning.
That's a great idea. We've got a comfortable couch over there for you.
There's certainly plenty to talk about.
Exactly.
And Jewel touched on a little bit of this. Invest Southwest, the mayor, I mean, you saw sort of the celebration as she was leaving, but she spent part of the day today touring some of those projects and programs that were a part of Invest Southwest. Is that, in essence, her legacy?
Well, I think it's certainly part of the legacy. I think the casino, there will be, when people look back on the history of and the legacy of Mayor Lightfoot, I mean, there will be a lot of things to point to. What was interesting today on her way out, technically the door, of course, she's there until Monday, but as you know, I mean, she signed a whole series, I believe 15 executive orders. Mayors don't do that. Rahm Emanuel left office, he didn't sign anything. Executive orders are the kind of things we hear that presidents do on their way out the door. They pardon everybody, you know, that kind of thing. But here, she was working to preserve her legacy. There's a pension one in there. There's some Invest Southwest ones in there. And the bottom line is, here's the thing. Brandon Johnson can come in and just do away with them all if he wants to.
Which he wouldn't, right?
Well, I don't know what he's going to do, but I think, and the only reason I hesitate is because apparently she did not talk to him about it, so he was blindsided by this stuff today. So if in any way he's offended or finds it negative, he could do away with it for that. But I think this was Mayor Lightfoot's way of preserving that legacy, trying to show that she took the steps she could take to keep that what she was working for 4 years alive going into the future. Might have been a good idea if she at least talked to him to say, this is what I'm going to do. But we don't know what happened behind the scenes.
One other big component in her departure is what she did this week, and that was declare the migrant crisis here in Chicago as an emergency. Talk about what that will do and how that addresses the problems that we see associated with this issue.
You know, it also raised the question, well, should she have done it? Should she have just waited? Because listen, this is Brandon Johnson's, when he steps into office day one, it's migrants. You know, what are you going to do? Much less the violence, which, you know, he'll also have to deal with in the days and weeks to come. So the bottom line is her answer would be, I'm mayor right now, I have to address it, and Title 42 was ending. So she needed to step in and do something, she would say, and I think that's what she did. Look, the city council, I mean, by declaring the emergency, it's opening up the doors to have National Guard used if possible. That hasn't happened yet, and it gets funding here more quickly. There are reasons for doing it, but there's no question that there's a lot of issues about, this is a major problem. We've got 8,000 people and they're coming all the time. What are we going to do about it? So that is a problem, and obviously the mayor had to address, but you know, Mayor-elect Johnson is going to have to deal with people in Chicago who say, wait, I live in a disenfranchised neighborhood. That money should be spent on Chicagoans. That's a tough challenge. The new mayor, the city council are going to have to figure out a way to address it.
It'll be interesting to see what happens the first few weeks as he takes office with that issue and so many other
honeymoon.
ones. Yeah, very quick. Okay, we want to switch gears to what's happening nationally, and we've got to talk about Trump, because that was another big headlines this week with the town hall that he had with one of the networks. Yeah, the verdict, one of the other things. But in that town hall that he had, the network that carried it got criticized a lot. But I'm wondering, what did Trump get in return? Meaning, did he benefit from that big show?
I don't think there's any doubt that former President Trump benefited from that event. First of all, it was on CNN, and so he.
I didn't want to say the network, but
well, but I figured I almost have to make my point, which is say he wanted to be in a more mainstream world. He didn't do it on Fox, right? So he wanted to go where people would see him. They had 3 million viewers. It was the highest rating that they've had in the evening, so it served him a lot of good. I certainly felt bad for the anchor, Caitlin Collins, who, look, she, you know, everybody's saying she did the best she could, but my view of it was she's put in an environment with an audience that was filled with Trump supporters who were applauding and cheering no matter what he said. And I think she, in many ways, it was just too much for her, or maybe for most anchors to handle. I don't know, you've anchored a lot of these. I don't know if you would have wanted to have been in that setting.
Never.
But so she was steamrolled a bit, but you know, doing the best that she can. For Trump, I think it served a great purpose. It lets the people who support him know he's back, and nothing has changed. Still denying still denying that January 6th was an insurrection, still denying that the election was fair. Everything stays the same. And having had the verdict the day before, being hit with a $5 billion verdict and being found liable for sexual abuse of this person, still continues to go after her and insult her. Once again, which, by the way, may be the grounds for a new lawsuit that she could file. She actually has another lawsuit that's still in the system. He said the same kind of stuff about her when he was president. So the argument in court right now before the same judge is, well, he was president, so he was protected. It was part of his job. That's the argument. So we'll see what the judge says about this, but there's nothing that would prevent her from filing a new lawsuit over these allegations.
He's also made some comments about the Mar-a-Lago documents that may actually work against him. Explain what that was.
So listen, the Mar-a-Lago investigation is, I mean, it's coming to an end. They've done a lot of work there, and he said some things. You know, he may have made a mistake by doing this town hall, because when Caitlin Collins asked him about the documents, as opposed to saying, I didn't know they were there, and which is what his lawyer said on his behalf, actually what he said was, essentially, I knew they were there. I had the right to do this. I declassified all this stuff. If I'm Jack Smith, who's the special prosecutor in this case, I'm taking very careful notes, because all of those statements can come back to haunt him. My prediction is they will.
Let's finish with George Santos.
Yeah.
13 criminal charges that he's facing. Still going to be able to finish out his term? Where do you see this all going?
Well, first of all, he says it's a witch hunt, so that's his view on it. There's nothing pretty much anybody can do about this. Congress is not going to kick him out, even though they could, because Kevin McCarthy needs his vote. So he's not going to expel him. Could he resign? He could, but he won't. Because if you're going to negotiate with the feds at some point down the line, one of the things you want to be able to have is, okay, I'll resign, as one of your arguments.
The leverage, right?
Yeah, there were some sort of quiet tapes that I heard the other day, which he was having a conversation about, saying it may be a little too early to appoint a presidential search committee, or presidential exploration committee. So he might be thinking of running for president. I don't know. But no, he's in very serious trouble. If I'm going to predict, I don't see how he survives this in office one way or another. It's got to go.
Your show this weekend, quick tease?
On Mother's Day, well, I'll be calling you to wish you a happy Mother's Day, but we'll also be joined by Alderman Jason Urban of the 28th Ward, talking about this migrant situation and problem, and also his views of the new city council that's about to come into play. And CNN's Supreme Court analyst, Joan Biskupic, is going to join me. She just wrote a new book called 9 Robes. We're going to talk about how the Supreme Court kind of ended up where it is right now. The basis of it goes back farther than you might think. It's not all about Trump appointees. And take a look at what else the court might do going forward. Basically, I'm going to ask her, is anything safe? Any of the issues, guns, anything safe? We'll see what she has to say.
Interesting one. Paul Lisnek, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, sir. And still